and welcome to my little workshop. This is the heart of the Goblins of Mordor, and where I spend 99% of my life. And so does Molly. So today I'm going to talk about paints and which ones I use, which are my favourites. So let's start with what paints I use. I use all of them, but I'll just show you. Here we have my army painter range, including inks, and you've got your core colours. Here we have the core colours of the MSP range from Reaper Miniatures. And here we have the MSP HD range from Reaper Miniatures. And over here we have another rack of core colours from Reaper Miniatures. Here are my core colours from Games Workshop. This is my classic 90s collection of Games Workshop paints. My beloved collection, I should say. And also you have the ink washes, and you have the glazes from the early 90s as well. And if Molly moved a big fat bum, we could see here you can see here we have oh, you stupid cat. You can see here we have my inks, and go away, you wally cat. Now I've got rid of the cat, we can start again. These are the dry brush paints I use from Games Workshop, and the inks at the back. Keep calm and paint miniatures. So what I'm going to do now is I will show you the different paints, what I use for different miniatures, and hopefully give you an idea of what will help you to start painting your miniatures, and we'll go from there. There is a huge amount of paint sets on the market which you can buy. These are a few of my older ones. This video really is to help the beginner start off painting, because as you start painting over the years, you'll collect your own personal collection like I have anyway. So I really am trying to show you guys and ladies what I use and what I think is best to start off with for painting your miniatures. This set is so old. Now I am not biased in any way on what paint you should buy, as I use all the different companies' paints. But as a beginner, I can really, with all my heart, recommend these paint sets from Reaper Miniatures. Now, I paint Reaper Miniatures. That does not mean that their paints are the best, but I have to say their starter boxes are amazing. With the starter box, you'll get the how to paint guide. It shows you from the beginning to the end of how to paint your miniatures. It's very good. Tells you all about the shading. You also get paint brushes. You get these 3 figures on the box, plus you get all the paints, and you also get a beautiful little box that the minis and the paint can be held in. A nice foam box so you can buy extra paints and put them in as well. So for a starter kit, I really recommend getting these paint sets from Reaper Miniatures. Now they do 2 sets. This is the more advanced one, so if you really are starting out, get the box set, which is the green box. You can buy them from Mighty Lancer Games if you're in the UK, or directly from Reaper Miniatures in the USA. As we're talking about paints today, I thought I'd show you my go-to set of brushes that I use. And we'll start off with the top ones. We have the Wargamer Large Dry Brush. These are all by Army Painter. You have the Small Dry Brush. You have the Character Brush. Then you have a Detail Brush. Then you have the Insane Detail Brush. And then you have the Psycho. The Psycho has a couple of bristles on the end, but for doing eyes, oh, you can't beat it. Now, the reason why I use these brushes is because they are good, but also for the price. They are probably the cheapest brushes on the market, but they do a fantastic job, and I totally recommend these ones. I use Games Workshop brushes for their wash brush, for putting on washes and inks, but you can use any old brush for really applying the wash. Once my brushes have come to the end of their life, I use them for dry brushing. So don't go chucking away your brushes because they're all stuck together. Just snip off the end with some scissors, get rid of all the bad bits, and then you can actually use it as a dry brush. So you get 2 uses out of it. So let's start with the first thing you do when you have your miniature, and that is you add a primer coat. Now, I use a brush-on primer all the time. Reaper Miniatures do a brush-on primer, and it works on their Bones minis and on their metal minis, and is fantastic. You can get it in black or white, and it will do the job perfectly well. I use this all the time. It's very, very good. Now, you also have the spray on. Now, I have to stress that the Games Workshop spray on paint is very, very good, but it doesn't work very well with Bones miniatures. Now, I've had to do a lot of research with the Bones miniatures, because what happens with the sprays, they go tacky, and you can't get, it just doesn't dry. Army Painter is one of the only sprays for Reaper Miniatures, the Bones range of miniatures, that will actually dry. So if you're painting Bones miniatures, go for this one. If you're painting metal, or use your Citadel, but to be honest, you can still use the Army Painter for your metal as well. It's just as good, and it's also cheaper. So now we're on to the core colours. Now, these are the colours you use for blocking in your miniatures, and by that I mean after you put your primer onto your miniature, you then put on your base colours. So all these colours from the different companies are to fill in your miniature. Now you have the Army Painter range, which is very good. It's quite a thick paint, so you can add some water to it. The Reaper Miniatures range I find is good straight out of the bottle, and then you have the Games Workshop paints. Games Workshop you can again use straight out of the pot. It is a thick paint, so you can water it down. I have used Games Workshop paints for 25-30 years, and it's been the last, I'd say, 3 years I have swapped from Games Workshop to Army Painter and the MSP range. Now, if I'm perfectly honest, my favourite at the minute is the MSP range, mainly because you can use it straight from the bottle. It's a very nice paint to use, and it holds well to the miniature. With the MSP range of paints and also the Army Painter range of paints, they come in a nozzle bottle, which I really prefer because you can just put out the amount you want onto your palette for use. Now, the only thing that I do find is they do get blocked up with paint. But my partner, she does jewellery making, and she has a box of these. So I pinched it from her room, and they're like drawing pins. They're for jewellery making. I don't know what she does with them, but look, they're like so. But they are absolutely perfect for cleaning the nozzle on your paint. Hope she doesn't find them. Mine. Now we're on to ink washes. Now Army Painter, Games Workshop and Reaper Miniatures all do the ink washes. You have a much larger range of Games Workshop and the Army Painter. Reaper Miniatures do a red, brown and a black, but they are cheaper than the other two. But my favourite has to be the Games Workshop's Nun Oil and the Agrax Surf Shade, probably because I use so much of it and it comes in a bigger bottle. But they are all roughly the same. They're all very good quality, and they do the job very well. So this is all down to personal choice with the ink washes. Once you have finished painting your miniature, you need to protect your miniature from chipping, and of course there's paints and sprays for that too. Reaper Miniatures does a brush on sealer. You've got Vallejo, they do a satin varnish. The Army Painter, they do gloss varnish, anti-shine, and then you have Games Workshop Purity Seal. The Purity Seal is fantastic if you have a big army, so you can just spray the whole thing, and that does exactly what it says on the tin, and it works very well. Now I paint 1 or 2 miniatures at a time, so I normally stick to my little bottles, and I use all of them. I use the Reaper Miniatures one. I use a satin varnish if I want a leathery effect to my miniature. I use the gloss varnish for doing eyes, and then you've got the anti-shine, which stops anything from shining. It takes away the glare off the miniature. All these are good. There's no best, and that's personal preference, but they're essential to helping your miniature last longer on the gaming table. It won't stop chipping forever, but it's better than not having any on at all, and they can give some fantastic effects to your miniature. In part 2 of this video, I'll be talking more about the different paints and colours. I'll be telling you about the HD range, and I'll go into more depth about the different types of paints. Plus we'll be going into detail on basing materials, what the best tools are to use, and everything else to do with making miniatures and painting miniatures. So this is just a quick guide for the beginners to start their painting. I hope it has helped a little bit. Until next time.